The story starts at sea, an uncommon place where the main characters don't tend to be. That said, Iruma Suzuki, a 14-year-old Japanese boy, is a complete pushover. He is incapable of refusing any requests, so he works hard to support his scumbag parents who treat him like a slave. While he's about to get kissed by a big tuna, Iruma is suddenly kidnapped to the another world by the demon Sullivan after Iruma's parents sell his soul. Sullivan wishes to adopt Iruma as his beloved grandson, since his friends always boast about their grandsons, and he is jealous, seeing his other option is being eaten. Aside from Sullivan dropping the magic word, i.e. please, Iruma reluctantly signs his life away and is enrolled in the demon school, where he must keep his human identity secret or risk being eaten by his classmates. So to mask his unique scent, Grandpa Sully showers him with demonic perfume. The next day, Iruma wakes up in his new fancy room before attending the opening ceremony. On his way, we see how lively the demon world is, from flying students to kids attacking the teacher. Iruma is understandably overwhelmed, but what sends him to another level of shock is learning Sullivan is the school's director. Thus, his attempts to blend in and fade in the background are proven useless as Grandpa Sully wastes no time to flex how cute and great his grandson is before excusing himself. First-year representative Asmodeus Alice gets called to give his speech, but Sullivan makes Iruma do it instead, which makes the fangirls mad. With the spotlight on him, Iruma sweats like a dog trapped in a car on a hot day. Yet to his luck, Sullivan passes him a paper to read. Students are seen both shocked and terrified, but Iruma doesn't bother to overthink the situation and continues to read his heart out. After finishing, the mad lad finds out he is reciting some forbidden spell that prevents Iruma from falling or embarrassing himself, which in turn impresses the students. How the F this ridiculous spell is forbidden, you're probably thinking right now. Well, you see, it turns out if Iruma had stuttered or made a mistake reading the spell, he would explode it instead. Hence why the crowd lost their shit when he finished reading, yet one person wasn't that impressed. Asmodeus challenges Iruma to a duel for insulting him, but Iruma, having been raised by his scumbag parents who constantly put him in dangerous situations, has developed an almost superhuman ability to dodge attacks. In turn, he lacks any offensive abilities, so he decides to end this situation like a Chad, i.e. peacefully. However, the other students assume Iruma refuses to fight back because he considers Asmodeus weak, wiling him up. In the process of dodging, a girl in the audience gets almost hurt. Iruma saves her, but the effects of Sullivan's spell prevent him from falling forward, and he accidentally knocks Asmodeus unconscious by throwing him backward in a German suplex, which by the way, looked very magnificent. As a result, the story spread throughout the school, making Iruma famous. And to make matters worse, Asmodeus happily declared himself Iruma's servant. In other words, not standing out in the Netherlands will be a challenge. Speaking about getting by in hell, our boy gets his first nightmare and it's about his parents. Imagine being so bad of a parent, your ray of sunshine in hell is a powerful demon lord. Let's be real, Grandpa Sully is the best grandpa out there. He greets his new grandson with a big smile, asks how he slept, and puts fancy food on the table. After enjoying the food, Iruma remembers that school exists even in hell, so he tries to refuse to attend demon school, but decides to go when Sullivan reveals he has bought even more thoughtful gifts for him. At school, things are as lively as usual, with the student council greeting the students under the instruction of their hot president, Ameri, one calling it right now is the best girl. Asmodeus informs Iruma they must summon their magical familiars, and the strength of the familiar will determine their demonic rank and which class they are placed in. A very cool, chill concept if the main man wasn't concerned that he now will have to add familiars on the what eat me list. Anyways, their advisor, Nabirius Caligo, makes a bold entrance and immediately shows his dislike towards Iruma for being Sullivan's grandson, as the latter doesn't live up to Caligo's strict instructor image. That said, the class begins like any other class, aside from the students performing a ceremony using their blood on summoning parchments marked with Nabirius's demonic seal to prevent cheating while summoning a familiar. Asmodeus summons a fire-breathing Gorgon snake as puts more pressure on Iruma, and he has no demonic power in his blood. The familiar summoning accidentally becomes a demon summoning using the power of Caligo's demonic seal, causing Caligo to be summoned as Iruma's familiar in the embarrassing form of a small, cute fluffy owl with bat wings and horns. Despite it being an accident, the other students assume Iruma must be even more powerful than Caligo to be able to bind him as a familiar. Enraged, Caligo demands for the contract to be cleared and acts more hostile, but a bolt of lightning strikes him down, showing that familiar acting up against their master is a big no-no. And with the recent turn of events, Iruma's infamy is boosted once again. To fix the situation, they head to the chaired demon office for solutions. But Sullivan happily informs them that familiar summoning contracts are unbreakable and last a year. Caligo becomes bedridden from shock, and Iruma's rank is left undetermined. With nothing to do, the lads head for the next class to get some books. There they meet a hyperactive student named Valet Clara, whom Asmodeus warns Iruma not to speak. Asmodeus explains Clara is a weirdo who people try to avoid. Subsequently, a teacher sees the two lads and assigns the babysitting duties to them. So now they are stuck with Clara, especially after she says the magic word compelling Iruma to play with her. Game after game, please after please, Clara becomes attached to Iruma and reveals she possesses magical pockets that can copy any object she touches. Iruma learns other students have been manipulating Clara into creating free food for them. So the next day, when the best boy wakes up thanks to his alarm clock from hell, he attends school on a mission, play as much as he can with his new friend. Seeing this, the other kids who were interacting with her for free stuff laugh at the thought that Iruma is hanging out with her to get what he wants. Clara hears them and reveals she has gotten used to having to bribe people to be her friends, which made me feel a certain type of way. So now she tries to bribe her new friend, but the mad lad refuses to, shattering her reality, until the Chad explains he wants to be her friend without bribes. This makes Clara so happy that when the other students try manipulating her again, she throws Boxo's son at them. People watching the trash isekai of this season will know. Anyways, back at track, Clara continues to play with Iruma using Asmodeus as a target for paid dodgeball. The next day, as Sully sees his boy off, he remarks how nice it is for Iruma to make new friends. This makes the later wonder if they could be considered friends, since he never had friends before. However, one can't solve problems on an empty stomach, so they head to the cafeteria, where he flexes his big appetite, impressing everyone and evidently killing the chef ? Meanwhile, Clara gets in trouble with a snack stall owner who considers her replicating pockets a form of shoplifting. Caligo arrives to settle the matter, only for Clara to trick Iruma into summoning Caligo, turning him back into an owl. Iruma, Clara, and Asmodeus flee while the stall owner traps Caligo and demands payment for the shoplifted items. Iruma asks Asmodeus and Clara if they're his friends, but is surprised to learn demons have no concept of friends, so he explains it and they agree to be friends. Back at the chair demon office, Sullivan holds a meeting where it is decided that Iruma, Clara, and Asmodeus will all be placed in the misfit class for problem children. Thus, the next day, while Iruma devours everything on sight with a wide smile on his face, Sullivan reveals that he put him in a class of troublemakers to help him not stand out, along with Asmodeus and Clara, so he wouldn't be alone. On their way home, we learn every demon can fly, which leaves Iruma in an awkward position. Luckily, Asmodeus' admiration of his master makes him think that Iruma walks to school to strengthen his core and lower half. Not gonna lie, one needs friends like Asmodeus to hype them up even when it's clear they ain't shit. Anyways, as soon as they arrive at the class below the school campus, Iruma-kun immediately runs afoul of booby traps set by his new classmates who wagered on whether he would get hit or not. While Iruma managed to dodge all the weapons, Sabnok Sabro, a tall muscular delinquent, chose to tank them. The reason why is that he plans on becoming the next Demon King, hence dodging is a cowardly act not fit for the future king. Subsequently, Iruma learns there are 10 demonic ranks, with Yod or 10th rank being the strongest, and the Demon King is always chosen from among the Yod. Sabnok admits he was placed in the misfit class for trying to fight a teacher. Caligo arrives, takes attendance of the new colorful characters, and then sets the misfits a task to determine their ranks, a race through a dangerous valley, though Professor Caligo warns them to avoid the guardian beast that is in a particularly foul mood. Most students opt to fly, except for Iruma, who has no demon wings and simply falls off the cliff when casually pushed by an impatient Caligo. During his fly, we get to see some of the character personalities, and let me tell you, one of my favorites is this little owl. He reminds me of that pervy character from My Hero Academia, but with more of a gentleman twist. Speaking about twists, the JoJo-looking character decides to go through the Cutthroat Valley, hoping this short but grave cut helps him land higher scores. Meanwhile, Iruma has been captured by a demonic crow planning to have him for dinner. However, to his luck, the Guardian's scream echoes in the valley, prompting the crow to accidentally drop him in the Guardian's nest with its baby, who is injured. Although taken back at first, the geek of Chad notices the big boy is injured, so to communicate, he means no harm and only wants to help wrap the wounds. Iruma stabs his hand and wraps it. The baby bird saw it and was like, "Alright, do your thing, magic man." Suddenly, a drop of blood falls in the wound, healing it. At that moment, Iruma discovers his human blood can instantly heal the demon's injuries. Elsewhere, Sabnok admits he made a mistake, trying to defeat the Guardian as it easily overpowers him. Incidentally, the grateful demon bird takes Iruma on a ride through the Cutthroat Valley, where Sabnok is currently fighting the Guardian. It is revealed that the musclehead wants to become Demon King to prove himself better than his pacifist older brother, and because it's cool AF, something we can't argue against. That said, he gets his ass handed to him yet again by the demonic Kurebo. Luckily, Iruma suddenly lands in front of him, pacifying the Guardian by showing his child is healed. Anyway, at the finish line, Asmodeus places first and Clara, who is riding on Asmodeus' shoulders, comes second. After the rest of the students arrive, Caligo decides to erase Iruma and Sabnok's names as he believes they have met their end. But to his utter shock, the lads arrive at the finish line on the back of the Guardian. Despite this impressive feat, they end up in last place and get sat in Naughty Kid's corner. A rank owl will provide everyone with rank badges, Caligo explains. In the punishment corner, Sabnok thanks Iruma-kun for saving him and declares him a worthy rival, which is kind of good. You see, aside from having friends to hike you up, one also needs friends to keep you in check. Never get caught lacking, boys. That said, back to the story. Asmodeus earns Dalit, 4th rank, Clara earns Jaimel, 3rd rank, and Sabnok earns Bet, 2nd rank. All are considered good ranks for first-year students, especially Asmodeus, who is the highest. Yet all eyes on Iruma, and let me say, your boy did not disappoint. Instead of a badge, the mad lad receives a golden ring. A startled Sabnok recalls a prophecy that the next Demon King will make other demons his servants, heal injuries with his blood, be born a foreigner, and wear Solomon's ring. However, these words fall on deaf ears when a black flame demon appears from the ring and starts draining power from his classmates, freaking Iruma and the rest. Trying to calm down the situation, Caligo steps in, but as soon as he senses the ring threatening him, the teacher, I repeat, the teacher attempts to sever Iruma's entire arm. To Iruma-kun's luck, Grandpa Sully arrives just in time to save the day. After the latter acts all goofy and scolds his head teacher, Sullivan explains the ring is the gluttonous feeder ring that eats magic power, and then pacifies it by feeding it some of his power. When it's all said and done, since the ring's rank is immeasurable, Iruma's rank and term is undetermined, and by default he receives the lowest rank LF. Yet his taming of the Guardian and his ring attacking his classmates increase his fame as a powerful demon once again. Iruma's fame draws the attention of the student council. Also, thanks to the chair demon going overboard by getting his grants in a chariot to ride, not standing out is almost a fleeting dream for Iruma. After embarrassingly walking down the red carpet laid by opera, Iruma-kun gets greeted by his buddies. The lads then head to Caligo's class, where they learn they will be taking classes with other teachers, so they need to lock in. A task easier said than done, as our boy's head is down in the gutters. Therefore, the boys try to cheer him up with some goofy faces, evidently succeeding. Now in botany class, the students learn to use magic to grow demonic plants. Sabnok produces a feral flower that eats everything it sees. Asmodeus, an elegant flower with flaming petals, and Clara, a mutated flower beyond rational description. In other words, the seeds bloom into unique flowers after each person's magic type and personality. With Iruma left, all eyes are on him, but since he has no magic, a main man says the spell is a joke while thinking of his home in Japan. Sullivan's magic suddenly bursts from his ring, just as Sullivan calls Iruma to explain that the ring lets Iruma use magic, but Sullivan had forgotten to set a limit on its output. Iruma's overpowered seed explodes into a giant cherry blossom tree, destroying the greenhouse. Student Council President, Azazel Ameri, recognizes the tree as a human plant and suspects Iruma is human. Speaking about the Student Council, as you expect, the council is somewhat overpowered, as they tend to be in any anime show. Ameri, who we dubbed as Best Girl pretty early, is the most admired student in school. By the way, some would say Clara is the best girl. A debate is open to discussion in the comments. Back to the story, Ameri privately reveals most demons believe humans do not exist, but her family secretly owns a library of sacred relics, i.e. Japanese manga, and is obsessed with the First Love Memory series as she cannot read Japanese and has mistakenly concluded it is a manual of human love spells. Meanwhile, Iruma tries to clean up the falling cherry blossoms despite Clara making more mess. As he leaves, Iruma turns a corner and accidentally knocks Ameri over. Recognizing the similarity to a romantic scene from First Love Memories, Ameri believes Iruma is trying to make her fall in love with him using human magic and concludes he must be human. Iruma and Ameri end up frozen, unsure how to react. Iruma assumes Ameri is angry while Ameri assumes she is in a magical love duel. As they mirror each other's moves, Ameri drops First Love Memories, which Loverboy recognizes as a manga he helped illustrate to earn money. At this point, it wouldn't amaze me if he worked for the CIA to have a place to sleep. This guy did more jobs in his 14 years of life than I did in my 2 centuries of life. Ameri realizes he can read Japanese, and rather than reveal he is human, she drags him to her office and asks him to read the story out loud for her. After Iruma finishes, an embarrassed Ameri puts her number in his phone so she can ask him to read for her again, meaning she won't snitch him out until they finish reading the massive library. The next day, as Opera sees the young master out, the former asks how Iruma-kun has found the netherworlds so far. Comparing each experience side to side, it's clear that he is enjoying this life way more. But then Opera Sullivan's servant drops a bombshell, being that a portal to the human realm will open when the main man graduates, and if he wants to pass through it, he must be on top of the school. Hearing this, Iruma-kun wonders if he wants to stay here for life or go back. Now at school, Loverboy is summoned by Ameri, making Asmodeus and Clara suspicious. Based on First Love Memories, Ameri decides that spending time with Iruma is a date. Asmodeus and Clara buy detection warning glasses to hide while following Iruma. Asmodeus assumes his master is hatching a plan to take over the student council, while Clara assumes the big hotties try and take Iruma for herself. Now take a look at this frame and tell me they don't fit together. This is a ship I'm willing to die on. Not only do they look good, but they also complete each other's personalities. You see, after learning about ambition from First Love Memories and listening to Ameri's plans for the future, Iruma realizes his pushover personality has prevented him from having any ambition of his own. Asmodeus tries to stop Clara from ruining Iruma's plans of taking over the school. This results in a Mexican standoff at the door. While Clara tries to brute force her way in like a bowling ball, Asmodeus stands there like an absolute unit to stop her, then pulls a fire sword from thin air to destroy the girl's chainsaw, all while rocking his glasses like a G. Inside, Iruma still struggles to come up with a dream, so Ameri urges him to raise his rank as a temporary goal. Clara breaks into the room to take Iruma back, assuming Ameri was trying to steal him. I mean, let's be real. How could she not think that her close relationship with Iruma-kun is in jeopardy? As time passes and Iruma spends more time with Ameri, Clara becomes increasingly jealous, so Sabnok suggests she lure him with her feminine wiles. Therefore, when it's time to select an optional course, Clara, having no feminine wiles, decides to join the seduction class to learn sexiness, to everyone's shock and doubt. And oh boy, their doubt was on the nose. You see, the succubus teacher, Rain, determines Clara has only 2% sexiness, making her impossibly innocent. Thus, she put her on special training and gives her a shit ton of books to read. Step 1 on the road of seduction was to learn how to pose. Clara tries to use this seduction method on Iruma, but he assumes she is playing games. Step 2 touching fails miserably. As she continues to fail with the rest of the steps, Clara becomes depressed but returns to normal when she gets back home and her very adorable family cheers her up. The next day, Clara pulls out everything she learned at once and tries to use a kiss attack, but Iruma avoids it with his superhuman dodging skill and Clara ends up receiving detention from Caligo. Clara admits she has zero sex appeal and resigns herself to losing Iruma until Loverboy innocently reveals he does think of her as a girl. Restoring her confidence enough that she declares she will make Iruma fall for her, Iruma feels an unusual thump in his heart as she pulls him along, holding his hand. Rain happily observes that Clara's sexiness has risen to 10%. One thing to note, the teacher offered Sweet Clara a perfume that artificially increases her charm and attracts people, yet she declined. Incidentally, that night, Iruma decides to get serious about raising his rank from the starter rank, all left to bet, i.e. second rank. Therefore, Iruma asks Asmodeus to help him climb the ranks. Naturally, Asmodeus overreacts and begins planning to make Iruma a yod, i.e. the 10th rank, and rule the school, though Iruma assures him he would be content with making it to bet. Asmodeus agrees, assuming his master has a complicated reason for becoming a bet. After settling down, Asmodeus explains the best way is to score well on an upcoming rank promotion exam based on Execution Cannonball, a dangerous competition that was once used to repress a sudden demon outbreak over their territories. It was truly a very bloody and deadly test. Hence, due to the casualties, the competition was toned down to become similar to human dodgeball. Iruma assumes he will do well with his ability to avoid danger until he realizes the other students are allowed to use their demonic powers. We talking booting strength behind the ball throw, using wind blades to deflect and using elemental powers for a normal human like Iruma-kun. It's like playing Valorant with no money to buy special skills. So he decides to assign a coach to help him not suck. Grandpa Sully explains that he can use his ring to use the stored magic during the exam, but Iruma decides he wants to compete with his power, not magic borrowed from Sullivan. Thus, Sullivan strengthens Iruma's hands to give him a fair chance, then leaves the physical training to Opera. The letter makes it clear it will be hard to catch the ball with the speedy, powerful ball the Catboy is shooting. Iruma struggles to catch the ball as his instinct is still to dodge, but he refuses to give up, especially with Asmodeus and Clara cheering him on from the sidelines. After a week of blood, sweat and hand bruises, the main man still cannot catch the ball, but Opera assures Sullivan that Iruma is having fun. Eventually, something in Iruma snapped.
Something just snapped! Something inside of me!
Finally, Iruma-kun managed to catch the ball. Our boy is now ready to take the exam. The day of the exam arrives, so Opera gives some words of encouragement before young Iruma heads out to the field. Caligo explains their ranks will be increased based on the opponents they defeat, but only if they are on the winning team. Asmodeus is assigned to a different team from Iruma, which puts him in a prolonged state of thinking about how he might help his homie out without making it obvious. The exam is instant chaos as Iruma's classmates use their powers while Clara floods the court with multiple balls, and the sleepy kid of the class gets annoyed and uses his magic to send the balls flying and clear the area, which damages the field and results in Pissarro getting kicked out. That said, amidst the chaos that happened, Iruma managed to secure the real ball, only to realize he never learned how to throw it, so he handed it over to the best thrower on the team. Sabnok, irritated that Asmodeus appears to be daydreaming, tries to strike him, but Asmodeus catches it with one hand and strikes Sabnok out instead. As the game continues, the players drop one after the other until only Asmodeus and Iruma-kun remain. Asmodeus is put in a tight spot after he sees the serious look on his boy's face. You see, in his mind, if he lets Iruma win, he would be helping a homie gain a rank, but also undermine all his hard work. Thereafter, a moment of hesitation, he decides to throw with his whole power. Ameri arrives to watch the exam for herself. Now face to face for the first time since the entrance ceremony, everyone watches in awe how Iruma charges forward after overcoming his fear and to catch the powerful throw. But as he cannot stop it, he instead spins in a circle to redirect the momentum of the ball back at Asmodeus, who is struck out by his power. Impressed by Iruma's tactic, Caligo promotes the young lad to second-rank bet. Ameri congratulates Iruma on finally conquering his short-term goal and gaining ambition. Back at home, Iruma thanks Opera for all his training, upsetting an emotional Sullivan who realizes he did very little to help Iruma during this exam. Another day, another reading session. No wait, now look at this precious face and tell me this is not a top-tier waifu, like come on. A new teacher, Bars Robin, arrives at the Misfits class, and it seems he has a personality Professor Caligo would hate with a burning passion. But we don't need to speculate as this newbie will be teaching the Misfit class about the importance of bonding with one's familiar. First, Asmodeus and Sabnok summon their Gorgon snake and Kelby's horse, impressing the teacher with their powerful summons. Then it was Clara's turn, and needless to say, her summon was also impressive, but for the wrong reasons. Turns out, Falful her summon is a rare familiar whose actions are mysterious. The fascinating thing about it though, is that the summon was the one that tamed the summoner. With Iruma's turn up, he tries to refuse until Bars says please, so Iruma summons a furious Caligo. The newbie reminds Iruma he needs to control his familiar, according to the rules written by none other than Professor Familiar himself. After having a private chat, Caligo decides to make Iruma the best summoner in class, even though it involves playing embarrassing games to promote trust and show that newbie who's boss. Now keep in mind the newbie doesn't know his senior as the fluffy familiar. Thus, both lads go with the flow and endure the embarrassing situations just to keep Iruma-kun's marks high. Meanwhile, Asmodeus and Sabnok get into a fight, so Professor Fluffy defeats their familiars and angrily informs the students that familiars are powerful, violent monsters only kept in check by their contracts. Back in the cafeteria, Iruma learns about the Battlers, groups of students with similar interests who form groups to help each other raise their ranks like school clubs. Therefore, it's only natural that Iruma joins one of the Battlers to find a new goal and raise his rank again. So Asmodeus tries to prepare Iruma as the senior Battlers begin their rookie hunt, an insanely terrifying stampede by older students to recruit first-year students into their groups. As that hunt begins, most seniors try to recruit the fancy demon Asmodeus, but he uses his flame power to shut everyone down and keep them at bay. The hunt is so brutal that the first years are in physical danger, ranging from simple arms/crushing every bone to curses/cooking them kids alive. Hence, enter Best Girl and the student council, who monitor most of the mayhem. At that moment, Iruma realizes that Ameri is the student council president. She invited Loverboy to join, but everyone thought she was inviting Asmodeus since he was the star rookie everyone trying to get, and the fact he took the flyer from her to hold for his master. So from everyone's perspective, she was talking to Asmodeus. Soon after, Caligo announces a 3-day trial period where students can try numerous battlers before deciding which to join permanently. On her path to becoming the best girl, Clara shows repeated interest in Raim's succubus battler, leaving Iruma struggling to decide as his fame means he is invited to join every battler. His ring suddenly activates and drags him through the air, dropping him on Amy Kirio, the recruiter for the magical apparatus battler, whose necklace is made from the same metal as the ring. Although their interaction is short and sweet, there's something that rubs me the wrong way about this new character. Later, Iruma visits several battlers, most of which are dangerous in some way and unsuitable, so he leaves back home clabless. Iruma tells Grandpa Sully about what happened with the ring going off control. Hence, the latter alters it so he can choose the level of magic he wants to use, Devil Demon or Ifrit, and a level for emergencies only Pandarula. After testing the ring of the Execution Cannonball battler, Ameri texts Iruma, reminding him to visit the council battler before the trial period is over. Sadly, Loverboy gets caught up in an explosion caused by one of Kirio's apparatus. Back at the student council hangout, the members are doing their best to decorate their clubroom under the guidance of an enthusiastic Ameri. However, Iruma texts her that he won't be able to visit the council after Kirio's explosion, but Ameri believes he got scared, especially after Loverboy notes that he genuinely didn't know she was the president of the student council. Now hanging with Kirio, the letter explains he researches and creates magic items, but since his magic power is so weak he cannot use the items he creates. Therefore, his goal is to allow weaker demons to stand up to the higher-level demons that mistreat them. Hearing this, Iruma decides to join his battler, and he is followed by Clara and Asmodeus. Iruma does later visit the student council, to Ameri's delight, at least until Iruma explains he joined another battler. This awkward situation took 2 hours to explain and resolve, as the show narrator said. With the trial period over, the school prepares for the battler party for battlers to welcome their recruits and meet their parents. Speaking about parents, Sullivan must attend the 13th dinner, a meeting of the Netherworld's 13 greatest demons, all of whom are concerned the Netherworld is falling to chaos without a demon king and believe it is time to raise either Sullivan Levy or Belial to the throne. However, the 3 legendary heroes' only concern is to compare grandkids and who has the best one. As usual, Levy and Belial start bragging. But this time, instead of Lord Sullivan being the third wheel or acting as the judge, Sully came in hot as a competitor with cute pics of him and Iruma-kun.
No comment.
After the 3 finish comparing decks, Levy and Belial agree Sullivan should take the throne, but Sullivan refuses, as he would have less time to spend with Iruma. Suddenly Henry, one of the 13 and Ameri's father, enters the room and is forced to arrest Sullivan after finding evidence Sullivan illegally visited the human world. Grandpa Sully makes his legally allowed phone call back home to Opera, who isn't at all surprised to hear he's been taken in by the authorities since it was bound to happen eventually. He tells Sully he won't be missed, upsetting him. But while he is distraught by his detention by the Border Patrol, he has nothing to worry about because there were no living witnesses to his crimes. Instead, he wonders about Iruma, who he imagines must be worried sick about him. But no, our boy is busy playing Smash Brothers with Opera, who might I add is beating him without even looking at the screen. Sully is upset he's missing out on quality time with Iruma, so he promises to be back home soon. But as he hangs up the phone and Iruma asks when Sully will be coming back, Opera lays the facts out for him. Sully's probably going to the Slammer. The Demon Parents' Day is quickly approaching and all the students are all in a panic over it. And as for Iruma, he gets reminded of his disappointing human family life, showcasing the failure of this world's CPS. But that's all in the past because now he has the loving Grandpa Sullivan looking after him. Caligo tries to get them to take this more seriously, and orders them to prepare for the Parents' Day properly because no one wants to look like a fool in front of their family. After dismissing them, Caligo gets called into the Chair Demon's office where he is informed that Sullivan has been detained by the Border Patrol. And since he won't be available for the foreseeable future, Caligo has been put in charge of the school as the acting chair demon. He doesn't like the extra work he just got saddled with, but he also wonders why Sullivan was detained. I mean, from what he knows about him, he's probably guilty, but still, He's one of 3 great demons, so he must have done something pretty illegal to still be detained with his status. Even so, it looks like the police don't have enough evidence yet to arrest him, which is why they just kept him in custody. Regardless, they've got to keep their guard up, so Caligo makes his first command as the acting chair demon and instructs them to prepare for the worst. And Robin over here is just having a blast, calling Caligo acting chair demon, much to his annoyance. Still much so that he threatens to throat punch Robin if he didn't cease his incessant talking. Yet Robin didn't stop, and he was indeed throat punched that day. Back with Iruma, Kiryu gets asked if his parents will be showing up for the Parents' Day, but that was an emotional land meme because his parents don't like him very much due to his lack of magic. But fortunately, he's got a guardian who takes care of him instead. And while he has a high image of them as kind, one quick phone call shows that they have quite the hot temper. They all had to prepare for their presentations with the other students, and all the students are excited because not only will the best presentation receive a reward, they could also potentially go up a rank. For that reason, Kiryu is determined to make his presentation stand out. But that's going to be difficult, especially when he has such a tiny space to work with. He has always gotten the short end of the stick since he is a 3rd year that hasn't ranked up yet, and low-key, his presentations always kind of sucked. But this year is different. He has Iruma and the others here to help him come up with ideas. And after some brief deliberation, Iruma comes up with an idea to use fireworks for the event. The others had never heard of it, so he explains that they are explosives that are shot into the sky for entertainment purposes. But while Kiryu loves the idea, it is going to take a lot of time to create the right mix of gunpowder, not to blow the place sky high, so they all stay at school for the night to work on it. Kiryu tries his hands at the gunpowder mixing by calculating the quantities, but he flunked math so it blows up in his face. The only reason he doesn't have 3rd-degree burns all over his body right now is because of his natural power of barrier magic. Still, the shock from the explosion does enough damage to him to cause his mouth to bleed, so he isn't invincible. It's hard for him to create something he has never seen before, so an example would go a long way to improving the efficiency of his trials, so Iruma looks to Magnet to solve this problem. In one chapter, Firework-kun once again ruins a confession by the female lead that has been building up for 200 chapters, and Ameri loved every moment of it. She'd assumed Iruma was here to read this issue to her, but he actually wants to borrow it to use as an example for his presentation. She is very much against the idea since these are forbidden texts gotten for her by her father, and she was instructed to never show them to another person. But after hearing that Iruma will be making fireworks, she suddenly feels very tired. And knows she accidentally forgot the book in plain sight for Iruma to take. It sure would be a shame if he were to use and return it before anyone noticed it was gone. With the example they now have, Iruma and the others are able to create their first firework and are also excited that before going to bed, they have an exhaustive pillow fight. Just when they were about to get to sleep, Kiryu's guardian calls him again, so he heads outside to take the call. And hunch confirmed, the guardian turns out to be evil and planning to destroy the Demon Academy since he got Sullivan arrested and away from the school. He reminds Kiryu to make sure they have full access to the machine for the plan that night, and Kiryu confirms that it will all go to plan, taking off his glasses and looking both cooler and more evil. The next day, 2 professors announce the battler party and get the students excited with the prizes they will be handing out to the demons with the best presentations. Prizes ranging from a cool new research room to an increase in budget, and for the battler that does the best out of all of them, the battler leader will go up by 2 ranks, while the rest of the battler members will go up 1 rank each. With such an amazing first prize, all the battler leaders are getting really intense because they want to win, and the heat they're exuding is so intense that even Iruma can feel it. Asmodeus had just finished setting up the firework cannon, and Iruma apologizes for not coming to help sooner, but Asmodeus tells him it's fine since he was the one who came up with the idea in the first place. Asking him to do any more would be unfair, and besides fire is his specialty anyway. Iruma notices that Kiryu isn't here, which seems odd since he was the most excited about this event, but Asmodeus informs him that Kiryu left a while ago to take care of some personal business. Said business involves Kiryu making his way into a secret room where he takes a seat and recalls the plan he has with his brother-in-arms. They are going to destroy the school on Battler Day, and he is all for the plan even though it will cause massive casualties. This is what happens when you bullied a quiet kid. At first he wasn't going to go through with his plan, but thanks to the encouragement from his bro and the innocent help from Iruma and the others, you'll be able to kill them all. But while he was still setting up his mass murder machine, Iruma walks into the room having been searching all over for Kiryu. Kiryu is shocked to see Iruma here, but maintains his composure and asks him how exactly he was able to find this place. Iruma explains that he was just walking around looking for Kiryu when his ring suddenly pulled and all the way in here. It's not hard to believe considering that same thing happened on the first day they met, so as Iruma asks what this place is, Kiryu decides to show him around, while looking clearly evil at the same time. He was told about this room by his bro. There was a place he used because he performed experiments that would get him expelled and quite possibly arrested with no chance of parole, so he would come here to do them instead. But now, all that is left of his inventions is junk. Iruma understands the backstory, but that still doesn't answer the question of what Kiryu was doing up here, so Kiryu offers to show him, but warns that once he sees it, there's no going back. And before giving him a chance to decide if he actually wants to or not, Kiryu pulls back the curtains to reveal a view of the entire school courtyard. And while they can see everyone from up here, the glass is special so no one down there can see or hear them. Meaning Kiryu can call them all dumb asses like he's always wanted to without repercussions. He asks Iruma if he recalls what he said when they first met. Due to his low magic, he can't use magic apparatus and is discriminated against normally. So his dream is to create a world where there isn't such a huge power gap, where everyone can be equal. He is a little excited and needs to sit down, but he thanks Iruma for listening to his dream. He feels like he can really talk to Iruma since he didn't care about him having little magic when they met. As they continue to talk, Iruma suggests to Kiryu that they should try for the first prize of the contest, but Kiryu thinks that is way too spectacular of a goal to try for since there will be other majorly powerful demons going after the same thing. But that's precisely why Iruma wants to try since if they win, it would be a major shock to all those powerful demons that think of Kiryu as nothing more than an afterthought. Kiryu is stunned by Iruma's ambition because he actually believes they can win. It reminds him of someone from his childhood, but it seems something tragic happened to them. Iruma calls out to him and snaps him out of his flashbacks, so Kiryu says they should both head back to the battler party before Asmodeus and Clara get at each other's necks. They leave and Kiryu asks Iruma to keep this place a secret from the others because it's important to him. And as they return, Asmodeus is chasing after Clara because she got to the firework cannon and bedazzled it. Kiryu says the bedazzling is fine, so they keep it that way, and by the next day, the battler party is about to begin where Kiryu's ulterior motives are about to bear fruit. Before the battler day officially begins, Iruma and the others want to scout out the competition they'll be facing in their pursuit of the grand prize, and to keep their identity hidden, Clara suggests they all put on these costumes. Asmodeus is against it, but I don't know why, because these costumes are some grade A fashion. As for the competition, one of the stalls is run by this werewolf, where their main attraction is their oversized yakisoba that is way too big for any one person to actually finish. But then Iruma appears and, for lack of a better term, inhales the dish in half a second. They can't believe what they just saw, but for Iruma, that was just a light snack to get him through the afternoon. As he leaves, Sabnot praises his supernatural eating abilities, but says even that won't get Iruma's battler to first place because he will be taking that prize. He's going to be reenacting a play of the former Demon Lord, and it is sure to be a hit with the crowd. Some of their other classmates show up as well, and Perviel is still doing his thing. They are all intending to do well with their battlers as Jazz's team are creating a new spell that can generate water from a rock, and another battler had managed to use special sorcery to create an ultra-realistic experience. But unfortunately it is still PG rated, so Perviel is out of luck with his fantasies. There are also a bunch of really interesting events lined up for the day, so it's not going to be easy to grab everyone's attention, but Iruma and the others are going to make it work. The plan is to set off the fireworks right as the bell to announce the beginning of the festival finishes ringing. Everyone gathers to see the bell ring, so if they set the firework off then it will be sure to grab the attention of most of the people there, and after that they will follow it up with several more beautiful fireworks to keep that attention. Iruma is really impressed with how well thought out Asmodeus' plan is, and Asmodeus reveals that he wants Iruma to be the one to light the cannon. It has been flawlessly designed, so it will go off 10 seconds after the fuse is lit. So once Asmodeus creates the fire to light it, he is going to have Iruma set the fuse, just like Clara just did. Wait, what? The others panic and rush to put the fuse out, but no matter what Iruma does, it refuses to be quenched. With no other options, Asmodeus grabs both Iruma and Clara and ducks for cover to save them from harm, but luckily the cannon doesn't go off. They are relieved they were saved from Clara's stupidity, but there's still the question of why the cannon didn't go off, and that's because the firework ammo was taken by Kiryu for his plan. Meanwhile, Sullivan is still being held at the police station, passing his time by demolishing one of the guards there in chess. The chief doesn't like keeping one of the great demons here like this whole they investigate, but the allegations brought against him by Ball need to be taken seriously. Ball had this all planned out with Kiryu since he liked how twisted the kid was and how he was one insult away from pulling out the AK in class. So he gave him the perfect opportunity to get his revenge and act like a true demon would. As night rolls in and the people all gather in the school for the festival, Kiryu breaks his necklace and unleashes his power, creating several barriers all throughout the school. And as the ensuing mayhem begins to settle down, the students realize they are all trapped in by some mysterious invisible walls. And having seen something like this before, Iruma immediately thinks Kiryu might have something to do with this. However, the scale of these things is far above anything that it seemed Kiryu be able to do. The other students begin to realize they are trapped in some barriers and are starting to panic because of it. The professors at the school find out about the barriers as well, and Caligo does the first natural thing to come to mind as he challenges the barrier's integrity with one of his powerful spells. But even though he managed to break through the barrier in no time, it was already sealed back up as good as new. Caligo is astonished by the amount of magic that would be required to maintain a barrier of this magnitude. From what he had just seen, the barrier could only possibly be destroyed by someone with unrivaled power like Sullivan, leading him to believe this unexpected event was carried out with the knowledge that Sullivan is currently in police custody. For now, they'll move towards the record rooms to find some more useful information. Caligo contacts the rest of the professors and gets them to announce to the students that this barrier fiasco was a planned surprise for them, and the barriers are just a maze for them to have fun in, and the goal is to reach the central plaza through the gaps in the barrier. This will keep the students calm for a while until they can locate the perpetrator of these barriers. And to do that, they enter the record room, which holds information on every battler, so they are going to comb through the files until they find people who could possibly create a barrier like this. All the students slowly make their way into the central plaza one after another, and the professors ask the student council to keep them calm for the time being until they figure this out. Caligo is still searching through the students' rosters when he receives word that all communication in and out of the school has been cut off by the barrier, and on top of that there are no gaps whatsoever that lead out of the school, so they are completely stuck in here. After that, he is contacted by another professor to inform him that 80% of the students have gathered in this central plaza already. But that raises alarm bells for him, since even though he asked them to make their way to the plaza, the students are far too dumb to have made it there so quickly by themselves. It's almost as if the one who created the barrier made it so everyone would make it to the plaza quickly. And if so, what is their end goal? Kiryu stands in his secret room, watching as his plan is unfolding exactly as he wants it to. When one of the students is going in a direction away from where he wants them, he blocks their path and redirects them towards the plaza, where he's going to trap them all and blow them up. He begins to power up the machine, but then he notices that there is one student heading straight for his secret room, and that student is Iruma. Kiryu realizes it must be Iruma, but doesn't understand how he was able to find him here, and to get the full picture, we go back to the moment Iruma figured out that the barrier was his doing. Asmodeus and Clara both tried to break their way through the barrier, but were unsuccessful. Asmodeus is surprised that someone like Kiryu, who has limited magic, could create such a potent barrier. And if it really is his doing, then he must have been planning this out for years in advance. Iruma doesn't know what Kiryu is thinking or where he is, but he has an idea of where to look. Asmodeus and Clara help Iruma find his way through the barriers while they scout out a path for him to the secret room. Meanwhile, the professors have identified Kiryu as their prime suspect for the barriers and have orders to capture him on sight. And though they have their reservations about leading the students to their own devices, Amiri and the Students' Council are there to help keep everyone safe from themselves. Iruma has just made it to the secret room where he hopes to find Kiryu, and it seems he has been waiting for his arrival. Iruma opens the secret entrance and finds a barrier around the door, so he yells for Kiryu to let him in so they can talk. And surprisingly, it actually works as Kiryu undoes the barrier and lets him in. He is still as cheery as ever, but Iruma notices his cooler look and asks what's going on. He casually states that he's going to blow up the school, but Iruma does get why he is doing all this. Kiryu explains that his family have been widely renowned for their powerful barrier magic and their bountiful magic. But then Kiryu was born, and upon analyzing his magic quantity, they went, "Damn, this ain't good. This kid is weak as hell." And just like in Sparta, the weak children are yeeted from the family. They did what all families do when they don't want to deal with a child they don't like. They sent him to boarding school, where he was beaten down by both the teacher and the other students. Yet in his grim life, there was still one girl who was willing to talk to him, and she made his time there bearable. They sat and talked as Kiryu showed her one of the barriers he is able to make, although if he loses focus it immediately shatters since he is so weak. She shows how impressed she is by it and tells Kiryu not to feel bad because he looks cool. As a gesture of goodwill, she offers to let him touch her good luck charm that came from her grandma. It is super important to her, so it shows how much she trusts him and how close they've gotten. But the bullies couldn't let a good thing last and decided one day that these two would be their next targets for the day. They take the girl's ornament and toss it into the river, but knowing how important that thing is to her, Kiryu musters all this strength and catches it with a barrier, but immediately after he loses it. The girl was devastated and had a look of absolute despair on her face after having lost her precious possession and soon moved away, but Kiryu stayed along with the memory of what happened that day. Since then, he has never been able to get that look on her face out of his mind, but not for the reason you think. Every time he thinks back to that moment and the look of absolute hopelessness on her face, he gets turned on. And after he looked at her like this, that is probably why the girl moved away. But he learned something about himself from that experience. The only thing that gets him off is the despair of others, and Iruma is unfortunately within his reach as he gets pinned down by Kiryu. He had almost forgotten, but this is still the Nether, and Kiryu is the embodiment of true demon right now. Admittedly, Kiryu got a little too excited for a moment and gets off Iruma so he can continue his backstory. His plan to destroy the school started when he met Ball. He snuck into Babyls' battler and was threatened by the demons to leave, but he just got excited, confusing them. Ball then comes out and meets Kiryu, so the young Kiryu begins to explain his weird fascination with the misfortune of others. But Ball reaffirms his fascination, telling him that's just how a demon is meant to be. It's the other people that have gotten too calm for help, so he invites Kiryu to join his cause to throw hell into despair once more by destroying the ranks that maintain order among the masses, starting with the academy. He could have used a barrier to stop Iruma from entering here in the first place, but he wanted to see the look of despair on his face as everyone he cares about is killed by something he helped create. But after that long speech telling Iruma how he should be in despair, Iruma looks up and says, "Did I ask though? He's lived a life 10 times worse than anything Kiryu could throw at him, so it'll take a lot more than this to faze him." Instead, he just casually walks over to the machine and begins to disarm it while Kiryu just stands there shocked at his nonchalant behavior. Regardless, even though he has disarmed the machine, that firework is still going to explode and kill both of them unless Kiryu puts up a barrier. So Iruma has no choice but to hand it over. However, Iruma makes another choice and jumps out the window using his magic to launch the firework into the sky. It rises until it hits the barrier and can ride no more since Kiryu designed this barrier with enough power, and that the only person capable of shattering it completely is Sullivan himself. This gives Iruma an idea as the power in his rank comes from Sullivan himself, so he unleashes his full power, blasting through the barrier and simultaneously creating a spectacular firework display that can be seen all over the land. Kiryu agonizes over years of planning going down the drain because of Iruma that he still saved the exhausted boy from falling to his death for some reason. He is pouty about it, but still accepts that he lost to Iruma this time. Iruma later wakes up to see Grandpa Sully has returned. He tries to get up, but realizes his entire body is unable to move due to the power he used earlier. He asks Sully what happened to Kiryu, but to find that out, we must go back to before the firework went off. The professors had made their way up to the roof, where Robin was then able to use his spell to get the message out. The arrow he fires ignores all obstacles and will always strike its target, so the arrow isn't stopped by the barrier and flies straight towards Sullivan, who is still in detention. He catches the arrow and sees the message attached to it, informing him of the situation at the school, so he decides to take his leave from the police station. As the fireworks went off and the students watched in awe, they failed to realize that the rocks hurling down towards them aren't a show and could really do damage. Luckily, Sullivan had just arrived and skillfully deflected the rocks away from the school, creating a secondary light show in the process. Now that the school is safe, they all march down to Kiryu's secret room to hit him with everything they've got, but all that was unnecessary because he is just sitting there patiently waiting to be arrested. He admits that he planned all this out for years, but he doesn't regret any of it because while his plans crumbled before his eyes, his own face of despair was exciting to see. The officials are weirded out by this and give him dirty look, but he's into that shit so they just take him away. Kiryu may have been stopped for now, but there are bound to be others like him who wish to bring chaos back to the Nether, so he's going to have to keep his guard up. After Iruma woke up, Sully carried him onto his shoulders to present him to the students who are in an uproar over how beautiful those fireworks were. They all praise Iruma and ask which battler he was a part of, so he answers, giving credit to everyone involved, including Kiryu. Though he's a terrifying demon in the end, Iruma still enjoyed the time he spent together with him, so he's going to keep his ideal of saving everyone. With that out of the way, the after party of the event begins where students can vote on which battler display they like most. And in addition, parents are allowed to join in now. We get to see Clara's whole family, and the goofiness clearly runs deep with them as they run off to go do their own thing. But then, Asmodeus gets a chill down his spine as he realizes the worst case has happened. His mother is here, and she's a MILF. He had asked his butler to keep her away, but he succumbed to her charms, and here she is. She starts talking to Iruma and introduces herself as the 13th Lord of Seduction. But as she starts getting a little too close, Asmodeus pulls her away to avoid her starting a complicated relationship with Iruma. Iruma gets a bit jealous of everyone and their family dynamics, but as the loneliness was creeping in, he gets reminded that he has an actual caring family now, so they go around and enjoy some stall games. However, Opera is an absolute beast and keeps putting them all out of business. It gets so bad that someone calls him Caligo to stop him, but he takes one look and decides that he wants no part in that. As the battler party comes to a close and they have brought ruin to almost all the game stalls, is reminded of how lucky he is to have the family he has now, so he commemorates the day with a family photo. As the event comes to a close, the announcer begins to read out the results for the winners of the battler competition. But as the suspense builds, he cuts to a commercial break. After the commercial break, the awards ceremony for the battlers event finally begins and everyone is pumped to see who receives which prize. Mary is called on stage to deliver the announcement, and it is finally revealed that third-place prize goes to the succubus battler who charmed their way into the hearts of all the boys, getting them the third-place prize of a luxurious battler room. Second-place prize goes to the new magic battler who made great achievements for magic science, so they get a massive budget increase. And finally, the grand prize goes to Iruma. Wait a minute, it actually went to the broadcast team because they kept the event running through all the craziness that went on earlier. Iruma is disappointed, but there's not much he can do about it since he did the best he could and the rest of the students still enjoyed their display, so there's nothing to be upset about. However, before the award ceremony is over, Caligo gets on stage and announces that there was one student who put themselves on the line to save everyone. And while such a dangerous act would normally warrant a punishment, in the spirit of the battler party, Caligo is going to add an extra award to be received by that individual. And you guessed it, that person is Iruma. Caligo steps up to him, saying he heard about all the effort Iruma put into stopping Kirio, but would it have killed him to report to Caligo before going after him in the first place? It worked out this time, but in the future, Iruma should learn to rely more on his teachers. Still, for his hard work, he is awarded with a rank promotion, which he is very grateful for. Though in all the commotion, Iruma kinda forgot he wanted to keep a low profile. And to be honest, if his profile got any higher, it would be Snoop Dogg. With more eyes on him, it is far more likely that someone finds out that he's human and can't bear to imagine what could possibly happen to him if he were found out. Later on, Iruma meets with Ameri once more to resume their usual manga sessions, but before they can get into it, Ameri spots her father outside and goes looking for him since it's odd to see him in school. She tells Iruma they'll continue this some other time and leaves him to go after Henry, so Iruma also goes off to do his own thing. However, shortly after he is found by Henry, who has been searching for him because he believes the reports about Sullivan kidnapping a human may have been true. And seeing how obsessed Sullivan was with Iruma, he needed to confirm for himself, so he told Iruma the story about a human he once found in the Nether. Iruma asks what happened to that human, so Henry states it was killed and eaten by him and his friends. He was only joking though, and tells Iruma he is on his side, so he should blink once if he is okay and twice if he needs help, but this kid doesn't blink at all. They get interrupted by Ameri, who's finally found them, and Henry is surprised to find out she already knows Iruma. She explains that they've been hanging out a lot recently, alone in the student council office where no one can disturb them or hear any sounds they make, but she assures him that nothing of that nature happened. She is about to tell him about the manga, but then she remembers that the manga are forbidden texts that she wasn't allowed to show anyone. So she makes up an excuse and says she and Iruma would talk about love and their future, which obviously gets interpreted as she is planning to marry Iruma, causing Henry to go into shock and have his glasses break 4 times in a row against the laws of nature. Suddenly that joke about eating Iruma is feeling a lot less like a joke, but the man is still in shock from the thought of losing his daughter, so Ameri takes him to the infirmary. Iruma is still struggling with the fact that he is now famous and has his face all over the front page of the newspaper, even beating the top demon idol Kuromu in publicity. Iruma doesn't know who this Kuromu is, so Asmodeus begins an explanation for him. When demons get stressed, they get violent and do evil things like murder and trolling orphans on Twitter. So to relieve that stress, they do things to relax, and going to idol shows is one of those activities. Kuromu is so popular that whenever she goes on tour, tickets always sell out almost immediately. And if one is really lucky, they'll get to personally meet and shake her hand. The experience is so miraculous that it can release all the negative emotions a demon has, but it still won't cure your baldness. Iruma gets called to go to the broadcast room for some reason, so he heads over along with Clara and Asmodeus. Meanwhile, Kuromu has just finished announcing her show and goes back to her locker room to relax a bit. It turns out that Kuromu is actually Karori from school, but no one knows of her secret identity as the idol Kuromu. Her magic scores were always average, so her parents never praised her like they did with her siblings, so she became an idol to prove to them that she can be the best. Yet on her road to being the best, Iruma keeps stealing the spotlight with all the spectacular things he's been doing, including that ungodly suplex he gave Asmodeus when they first met. She's really pissed that she keeps losing to him, but her manager Mal catches her acting all murdery and snaps her out of it because she has to head back out there. She tries to calm herself down as she walks back onto the stage since her plan is still on track. She's been keeping herself at a low rank in order to not stand out too much, but after she graduates, she'll expand her horizons and surpass everything her parents had ever accomplished, so she should just try to forget about Iruma for now. However, that's pretty hard when he is standing right there in the crowd. He had received some extra tickets from the broadcast team since they were helping with the show, so they came. But then, as they were about to leave the concert, Iruma was randomly selected to get a backstage visit with Kuromu. She's quietly kicking herself over how unlucky it is that the random person had to be Iruma of all people. She now has to do everything in her power to keep him from finding out that she goes to the same school as him, leading to a bunch of chaos and destruction in the room. But by the time Iruma was set to leave and Kuromu thought she was in the clear, Iruma says he'll see her in school tomorrow, meaning he figured her out after all. She drags him back in and asks how he managed to find out it was her, so he explains that he noticed the way she held her hands in class. So when he saw Kuromu doing the same thing, he had his suspicions. She can't believe how careless she was to let this happen. But then again, she always wore magical glasses that would hide her presence from all other demons. So since Iruma is definitely a demon, he shouldn't have been able to notice such small details about her unless he was paying super close attention to her. Manny must really like her a lot, but actually what he likes is how her school personality is almost completely invisible, while on the other hand, he keeps standing out despite not wanting to. Kuromu hears this and is enraged to realize that Iruma had been stealing the spotlight from her all this time, and he wasn't even trying to do so. However, in her fit of blind rage, she suddenly passes out with a fever, so Iruma is forced to call for help. Mal runs in to see what all the commotion is about and is horrified to see Kuromu on the floor, unconscious. She has a fever and Mal blames Iruma for this, even though he didn't do anything to her. When Kuromu gets too excited or uses too much ice magic, her body overheats and she ends up in a state like this. She has a whole Super Bowl stadium to perform for soon, but there's no way she could manage it while in this state. And to cool her down, they need a specialized doctor or someone from her family to do it. But her family skipped out on her show, so they aren't here to help her. Her family is known for three things: their ice magic, their icy expressions, and the ice on their wrists, so Kuromu wants to get back at them by becoming a warm and famous idol. However, in this state it looks as though they will have to cancel a concert, and that would spell doom for Kuromu's idol career, so Iruma is determined to help her out since he kind of caused this whole mess to begin with. Kuromu wakes up a while later and realizes it is past the time that the concert was meant to begin, meaning she has let her fans down and they're probably very upset. But as she walks out to the stage, she hears cheery instead of a fussy crowd, making her wonder what could be happening, and as she checks, she sees something that makes no sense to her. Iruma beat her in popularity in news coverage, and now he's giving her a run for her money as an idol. To understand how this happened, Iruma wanted to help keep the crowd under control, so he offered to go on as an opening act with Asmodeus and Clara. But he didn't realize that would mean he would have to be an idol. But this was for Kuromu, so he had to man up and put on the dress. As she watches Iruma put smiles on the others' faces, she realizes that he is doing this for her sake, even though he doesn't like to stand out. And any man willing to do cute girl poses for you is definitely a good person. She gets into character and heads out onto stage to join them, much to the crowd's ecstasy. Iruma wants to take the opportunity to leave, but she pulls him back and hands him a mic because this is now a duo. He then goes on to perform a perfectly synchronized duet with her, while having never heard this song or seen a demon idol before today. That's what you call talent. After the show, Kuromu finds out that her family had come to see her show after all, and the reason they never showed any emotion towards her was because just as it happened with her, when they get too excited, their powers go out of control, so they always support her from home instead. She's happy to hear her family really do care about her performances, but she still can't shake the feeling of frustration with Iruma being better at everything. The next day at school, the newspaper has a joint cover of Iruma and Kuromu. And as he meets her, she makes it clear that he'll regret it if he ever leaks her identity to the people at school, but she would also like to stay friends with him from now on after all he did to help her. All's well with the world, aside from the fact that Iruma's classmates start talking about how hot the new idol from the concert was without knowing it was Iruma. When Iruma first got here, he was so worried that he would be killed by the demons, but now he's gotten so used to it that it's normal. He heads to school as usual and goes through his normal routine. Racing to school with Asmodeus and Clara while the demons fly overhead, having magic class, and Pervial is still as down bad as ever. Following that, he has his manga reading session with Ameri and then heads home. A perfectly normal day, but he's still a human in the netherworld, so this shouldn't be normal at all. The next day, he's having a dilemma over whether it's really okay for him to live in the nether, but Asmodeus and Clara have no idea what he's thinking, so they resort to making him a meal to cheer him up. But when these two are alone together, everything turns into a fight, so they end up having a competition over who can make the best food for him. Back at home, Clara's having a hard time making sure her food is the best it can be, so her mother comes in and gives her the secret to making great food. Pour lots and lots of love into it, but leave out the bodily fluids for now, so they resort to singing instead. Meanwhile, Asmodeus is chefing up a storm out here in preparation for Iruma's vacuum cleaner of a mouth. The next day, they both present their meals to Iruma, and he absolutely loves both, but they want a definitive answer on which is better, so they both shove their meat down Iruma's throat. He tells them their meals are good individually, but they're even better when eaten together. He then begins inhaling the food, and Asmodeus and Clara come to a mutual understanding since they managed to accomplish their goal of cheering him up. But that's only a temporary understanding since they are back to arguing 10 minutes later. A lot has happened since Iruma got to the nether, but one thing is certain, his life down here is infinitely better than his human life, so he's going to stick around for a while. Thanks for watching. Want more anime recaps? Subscribe the channels and turn on notification bell.